Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 9th edition of Open House by DDAG. So this has become a tradition now that every month on one of the Saturdays we share this platform with everyone, all the people who are interested in geotechnical discussions. So likewise, today we have with us Mr. Yoginder Sharma, and today's topic is very be discussing the case study on Punat Sangchu 1. So the title of the presentation is Punat Sangchu 1, What Went Wrong? We'll be hearing Mr. Yoginder Kumar Sharma, who is formerly member of Central Water Commission and ex officio additional secretary to Government of India. He has done master in structural civil engineering. He has a rich experience of 15 years in designing of hydroelectric projects. He was director technical in implementing and managing construction of the 2 mega hydroelectric projects in Bhutan. For 5 years in Punat Sangchu 1, which is a 1200 megawatt hydroelectric project, and for 7 years in Punat Sangchu 2, which is a 1020 megawatt hydroelectric project. So I now request Mr. Yoginder Sharma to take the stage and start with his case study on Punat Sangchu 1. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mugdaji. Good afternoon to everyone, and I thank DDAG to let me share my presentation with the August gathering and audience. I'll be presenting my case study on Punat Sangchu 1. Let me share my desktop. I hope it is visible in my presentation.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
I'll go to first slide.
इनको ये पता लग गया होगा धवल साहब को कि I have joined.
वहाँ दिख रहे हैं ना.
So the title of the presentation is Punat Sangchu 1.
क्या मिश्रा जी आपको देख लिया मैंने.
What went wrong?
हाँ,
like to...
presentation नहीं दिख रहा है. It is not visible.
Is presentation not visible?
नहीं दिख रहा था, दिख रहा है.
To me,
it is visible to
ठीक है फिर.
It is दिख रहा है सर.
Okay.
So
दिख रहा है तो ठीक है फिर. There is something wrong with me. ठीक है.
I start the presentation. Punat Sangchu 1, what went wrong? We like to get the answers from the journey taken through the timeline of the project and see what went wrong, how it went wrong, and try to also find out why it went wrong. This is a layout location of the two projects, Punat Sangchu 1 and Punat Sangchu 2. Both are located one after the other in a cascading manner, and Punat Sangchu 1 is at a higher elevation, and Punat Sangchu 2 follows it after a 13 kilometer of river flow. They both are located in middle western central area of Bhutan. And to understand how the projects are implemented, how its various technical decisions are drawn, we need to understand the hierarchy through which various decisions get drawn. At the topmost level, there is a project authority, which is a joint venture of Government of India and Royal Government of Bhutan, which comprises of members of the Ministry of External Affairs, of Additional Secretary rank from Government of India, Ambassador of India to Bhutan, and likewise joint secretaries from Ministries of Power and Ministry of External Affairs, etc. From Royal Government of Bhutan, the authority is chaired by the Chairman of Ministry of External Affairs from Royal Government of Bhutan. High officials of Royal Government of Bhutan are there in the project authority. Central Water Commission and Central Electricity Authority are the technical permanent inviting members of the authority. and they are also the approving authorities of DPR and cost of the projects. At level 3, there is a technical coordination committee which makes technical decisions, and they are referred all difficult areas of the projects and they take technical decisions on that. And this technical coordination committee is convened by WEPCOS, and Central Water Commission and Central Electricity Authority, they co-chair this technical coordination committee. At level 4, all the technical details like DPR, cost of the project, bill of quantities of the estimates, the survey and investigation works of the projects, and later on the designs done during the construction are done through the consultancy of WEPCOS, with whom Central Water Commission as a civil engineering consultant and Central Electricity Authority as its electrical consultant, and GISI, Geological Survey of India, is its geological consultant. They provide to the project various designs and details and perform survey and investigations for all aspects of the projects. At level 5, for project construction, there is a supervision done through the project management, which is headed by project managing director, who hails from India, and is earlier it was a retired, very experienced person in hydro sector, and later on now a convention is that the managing director should be serving either PSU or Government of India official. A joint MD hails from Royal Government of Bhutan, and it usually had been expert in geology. Therefore, the geology wing of the project used to be governed by joint managing director, whereas managing director had director of finance and director technical, who used to hail from Government of India, serving officers from Government of India, and the technical works got carried out through various very efficient and renowned teams of constructing agencies, like L&T is given the work of dam, Gammon making HRT, HCC is making powerhouse, and BHEL is overall supplier of and installations for the machinery of hydromechanical and hydroelectrical works done by BHEL. Now let us go through the history of the project. The original dam location for the Puna Sanchu 1 dam was at 1.5 kilometer downstream of the present dam site. The location of the dam axis was shifted in 2008 by 1.5 kilometer upstream, with an understanding that the dam foundation grade will be available under the riverbed at a depth of around 45 meter, as compared to what it was expected at 78 meter depth at its original location. So it was a great advantage being seen, and it was understood that with this gain in lesser depth of the excavation for the foundations, the dam axis should be shifted 1.5 kilometer upstream. However, later, during the construction of the project, and a little earlier also to that, when tenders were being drawn, it was seen that the dam foundation grade rock still existed at around 78 meter below the riverbed. So that advantage was not there as was seen there. However, it was seen that there will be an advantage of at least gaining the head for generation of power, and by that some 105 megawatt extra could be generated at a very little cost added to the project. Therefore, it was decided by the authority, with the input from all the consultants, that the dam axis can be shifted 1.5 kilometer upstream. Then for now, if we see the Google map on which I have tried to transfer the project salient features, this is river Puna Sanchu with a light blue color or white color, and the red color is a primary national highway which runs parallel to river. The river has its left hillside, which comprises of a very good geology, and it has its right bank, which is relatively very weak geology. Dam is located here, and HRT goes within the left hill because it is a very good geological formation, and the powerhouse is there. There is around 300 meters or 290-meter drop of the pressure shafts, and power is generated, and the water is let through the tail race tunnel to join back in the river. Puna Sanchu 1 and Puna Sanchu 2. Puna Sanchu 2 is around 13 kilometers downstream from this point, and it has totally a mirror image of this project, but with the only difference that the hill side on the left bank here is of a very good geology. Therefore, all the underground structures are housed within the left bank. Whereas in the when the river reaches the Puna Sanchu 2, the situation just gets opposite, and the right bank hill in there has a very good geology, and left bank geology becomes very poor. Therefore, all these underground structures are housed in the right bank there in the Puna Sanchu 2. So let us concentrate on Puna Sanchu 1, which has a very good geology in left bank. Therefore, all underground structures are there in the left bank, and right bank has a poorer geology. The type of the dam conceived was concrete, which later on was considered to be made to RCC, roller compacted concrete gravity dam, for some reason which I'll explain later. The top of the dam is at 1205 meter elevation, FRL being 1202. Length of the dam top is 239, and maximum height of the dam is 136 meter from the foundations. The dam present level of excavation has reached 1110 meter, and the deepest elevation for the dam section is 1069 meter. Therefore, for the deepest section, around 41 meter excavation was yet to go. This is the dam pit view from the downstream. This is right bank, and this is left bank. If we see the left bank, as I said, was a very good geology. It has its rock almost vertical face and very good looking, very sturdy. Whereas the right bank is very flat as compared to left bank. And later on in slides further, we'll see that the geology here is not very good, as could be apparently seen also. This is the National Primary Highway. Sorry. And this is the National Primary Highway. This is the left bank, and we can see there is excellent subvertical rock face which is encountered in the right bank. We had some vertical joints persisting in this phase. Therefore, you will see there is a lot of cable anchors periodically given at various benches, designed to be of 30 meter length each, and of the capacity of 30 tons each, and they are provided to safeguard the overtoppling of this phase against the vertical joints which are there. These are intake structures, intake tunnels ready to be further given an intake structure rising from here. The intake structure had started here, and by now it has come up very well here. This photographs being old are meant to be only showing the geological setup of left bank. This is the right axis I have marked on the left bank, and dam imprint can be seen here. This is right bank, which is relatively very flat as compared to the left bank, and geology can be appreciated in this picture. The highway is here. This is top of the dam to be here. This is 1205 meter, and this is around 1220 meter, which later on sank and become 1216 meter or so. These are the cable car bench from where the cable cars are suspended for concreting of the dam. The right bank can be seen, and it is a comprising of polyphase deformation which has developed numerous joints and shears in the right bank. There is a strange coincidence that there is which happened in the two mega hydroelectric projects, Puna Sanchu 1 and Puna Sanchu 2, which are under construction since 2009-10 in Bhutan. The coincidence is that in Puna Sanchu 1, the right bank at dam site has failed, moving this and sinking the hill mass by 5 meter over a stretch in a 400 meter of height and around 250 meter in length. Whereas in Punasanchu 2, there is a huge rockfall happened in the downstream surge cavern, which resulted in a 91 meter high, 45 meter wide, and 70 meter long cavity being formed in the crown of the downstream surge gallery. So, to appreciate things better, let us understand what was the timeline of making of Punasanchu 1. Marked some crucial events along the time. In 2008, the dam axis was shifted from 1.5 kilometer upstream from the DPR studied dam axis location. And in 2009, the tender stage investigations were done with boreholes and a drift done in the right bank. And tender stage designs and drawings were prepared in 2009. In 2009 also, the work was awarded with, as I told, that L&T for the dam, HRT by Gammon, and Powerhouse by SCC, sorry. It also happened that in 2009, at around April, when there was a big storm Ayla affecting the Bay of Bengal, which also affected Bhutan. And the diversion discharge was required to be reviewed. It got so much of revision made that the diversion arrangement were required to be redesigned, and instead of one tunnel, two tunnels had to be provided. Diameter of the tunnels had to be revised, and the coffer dam height was required to be increased. All these required additional design works and a review, which wasted around 1 year of the project implementation. And at this stage, there was a idea coming that from the concrete dam, let the dam type be made roller compacted concrete, because it is a faster construction and is a continuous construction. And after all efforts were made to implement it as a roller compacted concrete dam, but I have learned that later, now it is changed again to normal conventional concrete dam. In 2010, the excavation of the dam pit started. The excavation from the topmost point required around 300 meters of excavation to reach the foundation grade of the dam. In 2011, by the project geologist, an inference of presence of 15-meter thick band of fractured biotite-rich gneiss, schistose partings and sheared seams dipping gently towards valley along foliation was delineated during drilling, which was done in tender stage in 2009, but inferences were drawn in 2011 by the project geologist. He expected it to expose all along the foundation of dam blocks 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and below foundation of blocks number 12 and 13. All these blocks are towards the right bank. They also house the spillway bays. In 2013, when the excavation was proceeding, the toe of the shear zone exposed and its protection got removed due to the excavation, and a major slide which moved and sank the right bank by 5 meters happened. I like to put the Punasanchu 1 history in 3 acts of its story. First is about missing out follow-up geological investigations to explore and interpret geology accurately. As in 2009, the tender stage, various geological explorations were done and some geological inferences were drawn. Later on in 2011, when it was seen that 15-meter thick band of fractured rock and shear seams are present there, therefore there is maybe some follow-up investigations were required, which seems to be having missing. As a consequence, because the shear zone could not be interpreted, therefore the designs for the support of the slopes, excavated slopes, also could not be revised, and therefore this also may be a missing out. The corrections to be made to the designs was there. And as a third act, it resulted into the catastrophic impact during the excavation of Punasanchu Dam, in which the right bank had moved in a stretch of, I said, 400 meters in height and around 250 meters in length along the bank, which moved by 5 meters vertical, 5 meters towards the river, and around 2.5 meters along the river. If we concentrate on the geology in the right bank, it consists of gentle natural slopes on the right bank of river and they are controlled by low and valley-ward dipping foliation plains. These prominent joints are closely spaced and are frequent and open at places and form potential wedges due to their intersection. The geology comprises medium to high-grade crystalline metamorphosed rocks with well-developed foliation and geneticity and are traversed by bands of schist which are 5 to 50 centimeter thick and are white-colored thin quartz of feldspathic partings veins along the foliation planes. The strata shows small-scale S-shaped tight folds and broad warping of the beds at places, indicating that rock strata has undergone the polyphase deformation in the past, leading to the development of numerous crisscross structural discontinuities like joints, shears, etc. of different orders. 5 prominent and 2 random joint sets are recorded in the right bank. The foliation is very close to moderately spaced from 2 cm to 60 cm and dips towards valley slightly in downstream direction. However, rolling of dip is also observed at places. There it dips into the hill due to folding and warping. In 2009, in the tender stage investigations, these drawings, geological drawings prepared, do not show any presence of shear zone in the right bank. Whereas later on from the same geological investigations and borehole lobes, in 2011, the project geologist had interpreted that there are shear seams present and there is a band of around 15-meter thick band of fractured rock mass and shear seams present there. This was perhaps the time when more explorations should have been there. In 2011, the geotechnical problems highlighted by the project geologist in the right abutment were mentioned as I said, presence of thick shear, fractured joints, battered gneiss, schist, with having very low strength and fissile and fractured, and have a very less RQD. They are moderately jointed and a very blocky nature of the rock mass with steep joints having longer continuity and persistence striking along the flow direction. Valleywards dipping of foliation and prominent open joints. These are some highlights of the right bank's geology. Now here, genesis of the problem had been identified, and going by the geological conditions, warning was given by the project geologist in 2011, which stated that a 15-meter thick band of fractured biotite-rich gneiss with a schistose partings and sheared seams, which dips gently towards valley along foliation, was delineated and during drilling, and it is expected to expose in all along the foundations of dam blocks 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and below the foundation of blocks number 12 and 13. The core recovery and RQD in the rock mass is very poor. This is what he had interpreted. Such bands striking parallel to the flow and dipping towards valley are prone to slide under forces, hence require proper treatment during excavation. These are the important advices that the geologist gave, that because of such bands striking parallel flow and dipping towards valley, they are prone to slide and require proper treatment during excavation. If we try to put this interpretation on the section of the dam location, these are blocks starting from 1 on the left side and going to 13 in the right side. And if we see, he said there is a 15-meter thick band which will go around under 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That means this is 7. So here something he had interpreted of a 15-meter thick band, which may be visualized like this. This is only a visualization, but somehow the shear zone was now known in, which was unknown in 2009. There have been indications of its presence given in 2011 by the project geologist. So it may have called for more investigations to delineate any shear zone if it was present. Inevitability of slides had been warned in 2011, stating that layered stratified foliated rocks with softer beds, schistose partings, shear zones confined between harder beds are always prone to shear stress problems, which are inevitably developing such rock in conjunction with pressure loads and are source of slides. Now let us see how the excavation had proceeded in the right bank. I am concentrating only on the right bank because the problem had occurred in the right bank. There was a national primary highway which was here present of this much width with the red line here, which was thought to be increased in its width because later on most of the project vehicles will be running on, all the project vehicles will be running around this, so the width of the highway was increased and some excavation was done here in February 2010. This is the natural rock, ground profile before any excavation, and this was the expected rock line interpreted by the geological studies. There was a drift made here which was around 90 meters long, and at the end of this drift there had been a collapse at that time, and the work had stopped for further putting it further. Proceeding with further in excavation from February 10 to February 12, this part of the excavation had been done, and in February 12 to February 13 further excavation deepened, progressed. In February 13 to July 13, this part of the riverbed was excavated, whereby these shear zones got exposed and the toe which was holding these shear zones got removed because of this excavation. Toe protection of the shear zone got removed in July 2013 and the problem occurred. Unlike now, it needs to be highlighted that left bank had been given 30-meter long cable anchors, as I told, to protect it from overtopping against vertical joints. Whereas because the right bank was very flat, it was not envisaged that it would require any cable anchors, and these were provided with only 7.5-meter long rock anchors, which were not penetrating long enough to reach sound rock here and protecting anything against any slides which were potential to be happening along this 15-meter thick band. So we see that support system provided for the excavated right bank slope dam pit comprised only 7.5-meter long rock anchors and was perhaps not sufficient for holding rock mass from sliding over the underlying shear zone. This is the delineated shear zone. I'll come to let you know how it got delineated. Unless very long cable anchors were provided, these 7.5-meter long rock anchors are understood to be not quite safe enough to prevent any slides on the vulnerable rock mass. This is the vulnerable rock mass, which may have a tendency of sliding on this plane. Therefore, eventually in July 2013, within a week, this entire hill mass, which is around 400 meters in height, along the river in a length of around 250 meters, this whole hill mass bodily got moved by 5 meters vertically down. This highway, which was here, came down by 5 meters to this green line, and the whole bank, right bank, got shifted by 5 meters towards the river. This shifting is by 5 meters towards the river. Red one is the earlier, the green one is the ground profile after the movement. So 5 meters it moved towards the river, and 5 meters it vertically got sunk, and it moved along the river by 2.5 meters. All these movements were recorded by inclinometers also. Hill mass in reach of 400 meter height, 250 meter length, moved by 5 meters towards valley, 2.5 meters towards downstream side, and settled by 5 meters. Just to appreciate, these are the pictures. This entire hill mass, right from top to bottom, this had got shifted by 5 meters. This is a view seen of from the downstream. That this is that hill mass which got affected. This is a closer view, and the effect of the movement can be seen, that how further geology got changed. Foliation and genosicity traversed by bands and schist is visible here in these close-up views. The cable cars which were earlier hanging here, clear of any restriction, got sunk by 5 meters, and they were touching this hillside. They were rendered useless. This is a closer view of the slumped mass. The fissures of 10 to 15 meter depth were seen at higher elevations where the separation was seen of the ground. There was damages to the structures. The cable car again is seen here, and these are the fissures and opening of ground. If we try to see that in 2011, the geologist had mentioned that there is a 15-meter thick band, and in 2013, the explorations were done after the slide through around 3.5 kilometer of aggregating length of the additional holes, which were perhaps 23 in numbers. Together, they made 3.5 kilometer of length of boreholes, and this shear plane was delineated through this exploration of around 3.5 kilometer length of boreholes, and it was termed that there is a major shear deformed zone of clay gauge 30 to 200 centimeter thickness, which is having its affected zone of 1.5 to 6.5 meter thick, which is dipping 25 degree to 45 degree with north 1040, and it was apprehended that the cause of the slide is this shear zone on which this ground had slided. These cracks, which I had shown in those pictures, were seen here with 10 to 15 meter opening. Thereafter, a lot of measures.
Sir, you have to close in next 3 minutes, please.
Okay, sir. Okay. Now, thereafter, a lot of measures were taken. 325 meter of diameter of installation of micropiles was done. Cement grouting extensively was done through the sump mass. Cable anchors were provided. 2.5 meter diameter of RCC piles were provided. But all these did not prevent the rock mass movement, although the rock mass movement had slowed down very much, but it continued for very long period, maybe around a year. The 2 meter diameter holes were cut through these slump mass, and reinforcement was provided. This is the phase after the strengthening and stabilization measures were done. This is a structure which was put to just hold any debris which later on had fallen from highway to this portion in a subsequent event. The consolidation grouting had 8.36 lakhs of cement bags, and 1,050 numbers of 325 meter diameter micropiles were provided. 1,000 numbers of 100 meter ton cable anchors were provided of 100 metric ton capacity each, and 250 numbers of 2 meter diameter RCC piles were driven to stabilize the right bank. Later on, the excavation was to be proceeded, and final limits of the excavation were to be required. Then these 2 meter diameter piles had to be shaved off, and therefore some part of it you are seeing the reinforcement and the concrete removed, which will later on be cut, and a profile of the slope would be maintained. The resulting financial implication had been that an original sanctioned cost 3,514 crore of the project would now be having a probable completion cost of around 12,000 crore. And the project is driven to a stage where all pertinent works except dam are completed. The construction of dam is stalled since 2013. After rupees 8,000 crores having been spent, the completion of the project is uncertain. Additionally, there is annual loss on account of unrealized interest of the capital cost invested, which is estimated to be around 800 crores per year, which is recurring every year and will be continuing for the past 5 years. It is now recurring, and when the project has come to a stop, and now it will be continuing recurring after year. Additionally, when the project gets completed, the tariff for the power which India would have to be paying to buy back its electricity from Bhutan would be at a much costlier rate than what was contemplated earlier. What is required to be learned is that construction of dam designs, etc., is a stage-wise iterative approach should be adopted, which is crucial for construction of dam. Stage-wise and iterative approach comprise of adequate and followed-up geological investigations, correct geological inferences, and proper and reviewed designs based on the geological inferences. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sharma Sahab.
Thank you, sir.
It was a very informative and a crisp presentation, technically speaking. You have done a good job, sir. And now I invite another Yogendra, Mr. Yogendra Deva, who is a colleague and a co-worker at DDAG with us. He had visited the site in March 2019, and he has taken some very good pictures, self-speaking pictures. And I request Deva Sahab to show a couple of pictures so that people can understand the ground in a much better manner.
Thank you, Dhawan Sahab. Thank you very much. Let me just give me a moment. Is my screen shared?
Not yet. Yes, now it is.
So I will just show you some photographs which I have taken. They are very interesting photographs. So this is a view almost from the dam axis, downstream view, which shows the all rocky left abutment and the overburden covered right abutment. But this overburden, what you are seeing, is basically a fresh slide which came later. This is the left abutment. You can see the intake structure. I mean, from the old pictures, if you compare it, the structure has been brought up and the rock treatment and other things, Sharma Sahab already shown you. This is the overall view of the right abutment. You can see the dam axis is somewhere here. You can see this this wall kind of thing, which is of these piles, 2 meter, the 2 meter dia piles. Dam axis is somewhere here, and this is the national highway, this one. And you can see this mass, which is on the downstream side. I will show you another picture where you get the full picture of this. This is another slide because the whole thing from here to I think here had been stabilized with the micro piles and big piles, 2 meter dia piles. And after that, with the crown at the highway level, this slide took place, and the mass which moved, that mass was still hanging at this place in March 2019. So this is the dam abutment, as you can see, dam axis being somewhere here, and this is the downstream mass. If you see another picture which is of the upstream side, you can see that the upstream side is much better. This is the continuity of this rock above there, which comes up here. I will not make any other comment. I will just showing you the fresh pictures, the latest pictures. You can get an idea. This is another view of the same thing, and this is the slanting view of the this pile work for the stabilization, and after piling, how the face has been cut along these piles, and the downstream slide is again seen here. And finally, this is me standing at one of the 2 meter dia pile. Just see the colossal size of this pile, the kind of, and the dam axis can be seen up here. So thank you very much. If you want to see this photograph again, you can ask me. I can do it again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deva Sahab. Very nice pictures. Now let us go to the Q&A session. A very brief Q&A session will be held. Mugdha ji, I think there are a few queries in our chat box. Can you read it for Sharma sir? Mugdha ji?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm trying to share the screen so that the questions would be visible on screen.
Okay,
Are they visible now?
Yes,
Yes,
we can
yes.
see that.
Okay. So we have a couple of questions from Mr. Arindam Chakrabarti. First is that how come 45 meter deep overburden envisaged during investigation when it was actually 78 meter? 78 meter overburden for concrete dam is itself extremely difficult to negotiate.
Very right. I'll say that the 45-meter deep overburden which was envisaged was not based on much of investigation. It was rather based on some third-party investigations which were being held by some Japanese firm there, and it was more of an understanding rather than any investigation that the dam grade foundation would be met at 45-meter depth. That perhaps gave the people involved a big advantage seen there, and they thought that dam axis be shifted. But before the construction was started and explorations were done actually, then it was seen that the bed is still available only at 78 meter, which was as deep an excavation requiring which was there in the earlier dam axis, which was 1.5 kilometer below this new dam axis. But the only advantage being added was that having made dam at the new location 1.5 kilometer upstream, there will be an advantage of additional head, and therefore 105 megawatt would be added at a very peanut cost, having the most of the project cost comprising other components remaining same. Only HRT was required to be extended. The dam height was required to be made same. Therefore, it was taken a decision that dam can be shifted when the geologists and more rather the Central Water Commission had commented that both the sites are equally good and bad. Therefore, going by this, that both sides are equally good and bad, why not take advantage of additional production of power? That it was decided that dam axis be shifted to 1.5 kilometer upstream.
Okay,
Next.
the second question is, what investigations were carried out in the alternative axis? If no investigations were carried out, how the project was cleared?
I said that in 2009, when the tender drawings were made, the consultants had to carry out the investigations. They had carried out investigation by a number of boreholes and drift. And what they projected was that left bank comprises of a very good rock with only vertical joints which were taken care of by the cable anchors, and the right bank was relatively very flat, and they thought that the geology and its flatness is good enough to be protected by 7.5 meter of rock anchors. But the geological investigation done, there was a lack of interpretation, I'll say, which in 2011 was definitely made known by the geologist of the project, which was to be converted to be followed up by further geological explorations to confirm and delineate the shear zone right at that time, rather than it getting exposed in 2013 by itself and having made the catastrophe.
Hello?
Yes, please. Next.
Yes.
Read the next one.
Okay, next question is from Mr. Ajay. That was there jet grouting in Coffer Dam?
The jet grouting was not done. It was the positive plastic concrete cut-off wall which was instead provided, because it was requiring to be negotiating a depth of around 100 meters of the overburden for seating the cut-off wall with its socket into the sound rock, and going for jet grouting of that depth of columns, height of columns of around 100 meters. Definitely there would have been windows left between because of the deviation of the grouting columns to be driven. There is no method available to keep them as vertical and sticking to each other that no windows be left. Practically, there would be windows left and there would be water seepage. Therefore, jet grouting was not done, and positive concrete cut-off wall was made by cutting a trench of 1.2 meter thickness and filling it with the plastic concrete.
Okay. Next question is, if right abutment was good, then why cable anchors were installed on the right bank?
Right abutment was not good. It was later on found that there is a 15-meter thick band of fractured rock mass which was delineated post-slide to be comprising of a shear plane, shear zone. Therefore, to stitch the weak rock or the slump mass which was lying now on the shear plane to stitching it to the sound rock lying beneath the shear plane, some 100-meter long, around 1050 numbers of cable anchors were driven to hold back this slumped mass stitched to the sound rope. Initially, there were no cable anchors designed, but after the slide, to strengthen the right bank, these cable anchors were designed and provided.
Okay, we have one more question in the chat box by
Yes,
Mr. Ahmed. Were any stability checks done prior to the slide with the stages of dam excavation to determine the support system? What was the factor of safety adopted?
Yes. Actually, the right people to answer this question would be the consultants, because it was responsibility of the consultants to do. I was in a project implementation team of supervision of the construction and had no role in getting to know whether any stability analysis is being done or not. Whatever construction drawings are provided to the supervising agencies like Pune Sanchu Management, we carried out the construction activities accordingly. I think there should have been analysis done at least after 2011, when the 15-meter thick band was delineated. There should have been extensive studies done, as you mentioned, and measures and factor of safety should have been arrived at.
Okay, thank you very much, Sharma sir.
Thank you.
Well, gentlemen, we have discussed enough of history, and now it is time to move forward.
Namaskar, before we move forward, I saw Dr. Sharda raising his hand.
Okay, I can't see his hand, but okay, Sharda sir, you can shoot a quick question.
Question is not, it is a comment.
Okay, please go ahead.
This project is best example of deceit and dishonesty committed by project people.
Okay.
Having a full, very good investigated DPR at one place, and you have shifted whole project to other place without conducting any investigations, and whatever investigation were, they were cooked up data. Knowing fully well that we are going to face, even at that time we knew we are going to face the problems, but you went for tender stage, then drilled few holes, and then the project was started for construction. And now see the fate of the project. Will it ever be completed?
ठीक है, Sharda sir, thanks for your comments. Let's move forward, and this answer will also be answered.
Let them answer.
Pardon?
I want answer from them.
Answer for whom? Answer from whom? I mean, you have given your comment. There is nobody to answer here. It will be conveyed. Okay. Thank you.
But certainly, that's the experience Sharda Sahab has, and the comment is well taken. So similarly, Mr. Sharda initiated the discussion which perhaps I wanted to start, because we have several experienced professionals today with us in this gathering, and I would request all of them one by one to share their very quick comments, not more than 2 minutes, please. So first of all, I will invite Mr. Imran Saeed. Mr. Imran, you had visited the site back in 2010. Can you hear me, Imran?
Yes, sir, I'm here. And
so you visited the site way back in 2010. What is your comment?
First, let us all be thankful to Dr. Yogendra Sharma ji for a very good presentation. In a very short time, he has delivered a whole lot of investigations in history. Yes, we visited the site once while coming back from Mangdechu, and Joshi Saab was also there. In fact, I was accompanying Joshi Saab. Apparently, the site, to be honest with you, did not look attractive at the first sight when we were standing on the banks. Apart from what he has already mentioned about this severe instability on the right bank, there's a whole lot of overburden, very much clear near the plunge pool. And I would have not put a dam over there. Looking at the surface geology itself, I would not require any investigations to select that dam site. Let me be very honest with you. But then there was a golden opportunity provided by the project geologist in 2011 also, when he did indicate a weak zone. If you are cutting 300 meters high, whatever may be the rock condition, you have to put enough support. Let us appreciate this kind of rock mechanics. And this rock was apparently even the slope, looking at the slope itself without any exposure, looking at the geomorphology itself, we could tell, as he mentioned, that the right bank is weak. Having said that, if the right bank is weak, then how could we put a 300-meter cut into it? That is a question. And if we are doing it, then we should be having a factor of safety which is very, very high to cover up, our follies and mistakes. Once he said there was a weak zone and schist layers, valley, we can only see the valley dipping joints only. I tell you, for slope stability, even one joint is very, very crucial. You don't need a very big shear zone for a slope failure. Even one joint which is badly disposed, which is a weak feature, can trigger a landslide if there are certain other conditions are fulfilled. So apparently that was a warning which even at that late stage, if some something was done on war footing, some fresh analysis looking at the weak zones, and then very much enhanced support, then things, I don't know, but I have to see the site and see all the investigations, test results, then a comment could be proper. So to make a comment like this is also not proper. Then probably I'm telling, something could have been done even at that late stage. And number two, yes, there are sometimes there are engineering factors. There is a attraction of a head and a very little investment, and the rewards seem to be very, very high, but actually it is not like that. Unless we see the site, and obviously now more slides have taken place in the downstream also. How can we salvage that project, is the thing, because so many structures are already completed, and could we do something here and there? All those things depend on a detailed study of the data, detailed study of the site, and many experts, I believe, have been there, and we have also been following in NHPC because this was a concern for the whole engineering fraternity, the whole hydro people, in fact, and everybody wished that this project should come through the difficulties. And but apparently the site at the first glance was not attractive. But as I said, could we, what went wrong, he says, and could we have salvaged it at a later stage also is the question, which can only be answered after some more detailed analysis.
Well, Imran San, you have raised very pertinent questions, and now we
one thing, sir, the coffer dam is a very nice structure over there. It's a very, very deep plastic cut-off wall they have put, and probably the coffer dam stands out over there, and that was the time when the deep overburden also was revealed, even before going to the dam excavation. And at every stage of the project, a review has to be taken depending on the investigations and the construction data which is flowing in from the approach roads. A review has to be taken periodically. What influence these new things are causing on our layout? Can we do something?
Imran Sahab, I will come back to you because of paucity of time. We have to go to certain other people. You see, we had detailed comments from two very experienced geologists, Dr. Sharda from GSI and Mr. Imran Said from NHPC. Now I go to Mr. A.K. Mishra, who had very successfully delivered Mangdeju project. Mishra sir, your comments, please be very brief in 2 minutes.
Yeah. A very good afternoon to all the professionals over here. I have been watching this problem professionally for a very long time, and I, Sharma, for so deeply working out on this problem for so many years. You see, I had been in touch with so many consultants at an individual level to find out now what can be done. Suppose this has happened, maybe a professional error or a blunder, whatever you say. The first principle says that we must analyze the whole what is existing today in that perspective, whether I can build a successful concrete dam here. That means you have to analyze the entire thing again independently. For what then? What is required? You see, in India, the most of our dams and most of our design engineers are focusing on the linear analysis, where stress is proportional to strain. Now, the condition here in right abutment is not valid. Stress is not proportional to strain. That is the situation. That means site demands a non-linear analysis. Non-linear analysis is a very complex analysis. It requires a lot of database, but this can be done. It requires supercomputing, and this is available in India also now, and available in London in some other good companies, which I had personally discussed. So my suggestion to solve this problem is that first let us analyze. A lot of data is already with us, and if more data is to be collected, we should collect the data and go for non-linear analysis to ensure that whether the right abutment will behave the way we are thinking. That is point number one. Point number two, see, these days a lot of research is going on unsaturated soil mass. You must have heard soil mechanics. All soil mechanics developed from 1950 onwards is based on the very concept of saturation. Unsaturated mass is now an area of research these days. Now, what is happening here, because if you read the NGI reports, Sharma Saab must be knowing it, they have linked that the rate of movement in the right abutment is increasing per month soon after the rains, and there is a direct link of the fluctuation of water level inside. So what is next? Next is that we have to ascertain that how this entire mass is going to behave even if I build dam here after saturation. That is also an area which is to be focused, because we don't know how this mass is going to perform once the reservoirs build up and the saturation takes place in say 2 years, 3 years or 4 years time, water table goes up. That scenario is very, very important for the safety of this dam. So we must focus in, whatever happened has happened. Now we should reanalyze the whole thing with two perspectives. First, I am putting up my abutment against a material which has not a compatible modulus. Mind it, elastic modulus of right abutment is not as good as the concrete is having. Why you are going for a good abutment? A good abutment means when you are joining these two materials, they are compatible from the modulus point of view. So this joint becomes very good. If the one material is weak, another material is good, that is concrete, the joining will not be compatible. This is well established. So once we know that the material is not good, it is not equivalent to a good rock, that my joining, my concrete dam, when it will butt against the last block I am talking, against this mass, it will not be a good joint from technical point of view. If it is not a good joint, what will happen when saturation takes place? It may bypass the entire abutment and the water can come out. It has happened in a few dams. It is on record. So my suggestion would be here, to all the colleagues, is that we should focus only on two things. First, that we should analyze this not from the linear point of view, from the non-linear point of view. Having a lot of data and then go for an independent study, find out deformations, what is happening. Number one. Number two, the saturation aspect, which I told you, that what will happen once it is saturated. That is a very, very important aspect. That you may build a dam, but whether the right abutment will behave the way you thought after saturation, that's a question mark, because the dam abutment is very weak. So these are the two focal areas. You know, whether I have done this or I have done this, okay. But now, to my mind, we should confine ourselves in a very critical manner into those two aspects. And if the results give you satisfaction and a theoretical analysis of nonlinear, which is possible. I had a talk with Daniel Billocks of XCA International, who is heading London office. They have quoted me about $1 lakh and about 8 months time, 7-8 months time to perform the supercomputing and find out the results. And that is in Indian rupees is about 75 lakhs or 80 lakhs, less than a crore. But this can be done by a lot of database at London, and we can have a lot of clarity on deformations. Second, the saturation. That is also important. If we are satisfied that my deformations and my saturation, even after filling, I am comfortable, I am within the limits, then definitely we can take the measures and we can go ahead at the present axis. You know, the debate is this, whether I will be able to do a good dam over here. That is the first question. If not, should I keep on spending money over here? So it is a question of investment on this side, whether I keep on investing or I must review my decision now. Whatever happens, happen. So this is how we should crystallize our thinking. Let us not keep on putting money here and there and keep on experimenting with things. Now enough has been done. A lot of database is generated. We can do with that database a lot of things. I am sure about it. Only thing is we have to move in that direction. If we study these two aspects technically, I am sure you will get the answer by the existing situation over there, whether you can do a good dam over there or not. And then you can decide whether I should invest money or not. I think this is how we should move systematically.
Thank you.
This is my suggestion to all the colleagues over here. And I have done some work on this of my own liking. I have discussed with so many good people outside of our own country. And then slowly, I also could make up my mind that how to move further.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe sometimes later we will go into the nitty-gritty of this, but you have certainly done a very good value addition to the whole thing. Now, I would like to have very quick comments from Mr. R.N. Mishra. R.N. Mishra, sir, can you hear me?
Thank you, Daman Saab. I would like to give my comments within 30-40 seconds.
Wonderful.
All my friends have already spoken a lot and they have told a lot of things. I would like to say that it was a beautiful presentation by Mr. Yogender Sharma, and he has beautifully summed up at the end. And his summing up said that number one, we should have better, more detailed investigations, and based upon the investigations, we should make our design, and the design should be reviewed as the time passes. And that is the basic lesson which he has very beautifully summed up. And that lesson, if we take, most of the things can be definitely resolved, or most of the problems can be, most of the problems can be put in order at the earliest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mishra sir, for being very brief also. Now I invite an engineer who is a complete engineer in itself. he has done a lot of investigations, design and construction also. I'm requesting Mr. Balraj Joshi, who had been participating in the government level meetings, because our government is also seized with this problem, how to resolve it. And Joshi sir, in capacity of CMD NHPC, after his retirement, had been very actively participating in these meetings. So Joshi sir, what is your take on the present scenario?
Well, thank you, Dhawan Saab. And at the outset, let me thank DDAG for hosting this unique open house, which Mr. Sharma has presented very nicely. And as Imran stated that in a very short time, he could sum up all these years of which have gone by. I think from his presentation, what I make out is that Pune 1 is a good example of how small bits and pieces, they can add up together to make a gigantic problem like this, what we have at our hands now. And also now to address these problems on a daily basis, one always risks losing the bigger picture, which Mr. Mishra also has pointed out. But what I would like to say that, as I said, my open house number 3, when I talked about the dam foundations at your platform only, I talked about synergy between the geologists and the engineers at all levels, at all stages. And this has been our experiences. We have been living it actually. And what I find is that when the geologist had, indicated some kind of a problem there, a bigger investigation regime should have been established and things should have been addressed. But that's the point of I've always made, that synergy has to be there. One has to be really sensitive to the necessities of each other's profession, and also because it's for the overall good of the structure. So when I visited the project along with Mr. Imran in 2010, certainly Imran has already said that this was an airy kind of a feeling. Why are we putting this dam here? But then the location of the DPR, where the project was earlier, was also no good. I mean, it was also 78 meters of depth there also. So people at that time would have thought, okay, if we are getting for 45 meters, why not move up? So I think that is the chronology which Mr. Sharma has very nicely explained. And now coming to the present situation and scenario, what is to be done? Of course, much has been discussed. Mr. Mishra also has been present in a number of meetings. I also have been participating in them. And measurement of deformations at the most, high-end kind of technologies being used for measuring deformations also. Then the issue of non-linear analysis also has been discussed. Design as you build. I mean, I think it's a complete package of what should be done and what has not been done. And as you have rightly now brought to the culmination of this presentation, that what needs to be done now is whether do we want to have a dam there or not. Of course, when we read in our college days also, there are certain, in the very start of the chapter, there are certain guidelines which tell you how to avoid such areas where problems can occur. So we probably missed out on that chapter. Here we couldn't avoid that area where problem was imminent. And now we are trying to wriggle out of the situation, how to move to an area where problems are not there. Having said that, there are efforts going on which are trying to rectify the damage which was already done by moving upstream or doing something. But as Mr. Mishra said, that there should be an effort to see that whether this is possible to put the dam here. I look at this problem from 3 different parts. I just break it down in 3 parts. Upstream of the dam, there's a reservoir area, dam bottomment and the foundation, and then the downstream area. And if you see the upstream of the area, and as you see the 15-meter thick shear zone, these shear zones are not alone. That's why they are called zones, and they are not clear-cut defined lines. And during their formation, they naturally disturb the upstream and downstream also quite significantly, whereby there's a good possibility that the dam, when it is impounded, it would start communicating the water from the right abutment to the down below. Eventually, this problem can be addressed again. As I say, that in bits and pieces, you can take the water, you can put a diaphragm wall inside, like we have done in Subansiri. And once we have done a 100-meter dam, the diaphragm wall for the coffer dam, we can certainly do that also here. It can be done. So this will be solved. Then the dam abutment and the foundation part, the seismic stability of this dam on a strengthened mass with the piles, and Then there are international consultants' view that you cannot start construction unless the deformations come to zero. I see a bit of dichotomy here. An international contractor telling you that your slope should be completely stable, completely zero deformation, and then only you should allow the dam to be constructed. On the other hand, what we are doing, of course, that has to be done also. We are putting piles there to stabilize. A lateral force which cannot be resisted by a thick dam. How piles can take it? I mean, that's a question to be seen by the designers. Maybe we should go to big, huge wells kinds of thing, which can provide that kind of flexible rigidity. As regards the non-linear analysis, Mr. Mishra has said, I think the problem would come in determining the properties of that moduli at different stages. So I think that's a very detailed kind of thing. But I'm slightly more worried about the downstream part, because the ADA portion, where the plunge pool is supposed to be there, now they are changing to sealing basin. I think that's an area which needs much more consideration, because EDAs over the years in NHPC also we have seen they misbehave very frequently. And in the instant case, a progressive failure on the upstream side by the huge flowing discharges during the flood cannot be ruled out. So these were the three aspects which probably appear to us that the time and cost which will be involved in solving these bits and pieces again, rather than a holistic solution, it would be better to move somewhere else. So that I think the work is going on there. And I still hold the view that you have to make up your mind. Like Mr. Sharda said, ye kab karoge or kitne mein karoge? That's the question. But added to his research, he is concerned, I would just add the dam safety aspect also. What happens to the dam after 50 years? Because the dam is going to stay for 100 years. So I think that kind of holistic thinking has to come in before we really make some more expenditure here. And certainly this has to be discussed and mulled at various level and by various people. India has never lagged behind in dam construction. We have 5,000 or more than 5,000 odd dams. It's not that we cannot do it, but this was a unique case where I again underscore that the synergy between a geologist and engineers, and also for the people who must speak at the right time, that is a lesson I think which we can draw from Pune Sanchu 1. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Doshab. Thanks for your very elaborate comments, and these are really very useful. And if all of you agree at some stage, DDAG would like to compile all these suggestions, whatever have come up today during the session of observations and way forward. And we may forward these suggestions to the Government of India. And before I go towards closing this session, there's a question by Arindam Chakravarti. Very quick question, Mr. Chakravarti, if you can ask yourself. Arindam, can
Hello.
you?
Hello.
Yes. Hello. Please ask.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Sir, my question that I got the opportunity to visit the site where it was understood that the one part of the right abutment blocks 8 to 10, they are planning to be listed on pile. So just my question is that what is your opinion being an expert? My question is to Mr. Sharma, sir. So what is his opinion regarding that? Whether any precedence is there? Because in literature, apart from 10-meter high Ambersand Dam, we didn't find any literature regarding that the huge concrete dam is rested on, a part of the dam is rested on piles. So what is his opinion regarding this?
If the question is aimed at me, let me answer it that way. That the length of the depth of the piles range from 45 meter to around 85 meters, and the diameter is 2 meter. To me, they look very slender for their stability against lateral forces of definitely coming from a moving mass, which is huge. And on that, if the dam is built on those piles, and I think they may not behave very well. To my knowledge, there is not as good an example of having such deep piles of 45 to 85 meter depth of piles holding dam onto it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
I think
thank you very much.
Joshi can augment on this if he has knowledge of having dams on such piles, such long piles.
No. I think Sharma sir, the only dam which he said, Emerson Dam, this is a precedent, but that's only 30-meter high dam, and this was our question also to Central Water Commission at that time, that we don't have any really a good comparable example all over the world.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, Deva sir, now it is your turn to wrap up or sum up the whole session.
We have already overshot by 15 minutes.
Yes.
So Mishra ji took 40 seconds. I will take probably 90 seconds for this. So now we come to the conclusion that there is a problem at present, is that of abutting the dam in incompetent material. First thing. Then there is a problem, another problem in the plunge floor area downstream of the dam axis. I showed you also a landslide is already sliding has taken place. That is another area which is a bit problematic. And then the dam safety aspect, that what will happen to this dam after 50 years. If we see these problems, and it has been suggested that we should go for, in the way forward, we should go for non-linear analysis, and we should go for the rock mass behavior after impounding, that how the rock mass will behave when it is saturated. These are the two things which have been done. But as a geologist, I have still a doubt. The clarity is not there. So that doubt is that I am still not sure whether the beautiful rock, now stabilized beautiful rock we saw in the pictures of March 19, that rock, whether it is still a slump mass lying over over the slide plane, or the mass above the slide plane has been removed, and what we are seeing, this mass we are seeing on the national highway also, a big length. So this is one particular point of big importance, that where this slide plane is there. So I think the way forward would be the point which have already been shown. The third thing would be the delineation of the slide plane, and that requires a review of whatever investigations have been done. A complete review is required to develop the geological model of the right abutment with respect to the sliding which has taken place, and where the slide plane is there. So only on that basis the way forward can be seen. Thank you very much, Taman sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all the speakers and all the guests for their very warm participation. Although we overshot, but certainly it was a very useful session. And my profuse thanks to Mr. Yogendra Sharma ji for making this session so lively and making the a very complex technical issue presenting in a very simple manner and in a crisp manner. Thanks a lot.
Mr. Sharma,
thank you.
Round of applause for his nice presentation.
Thank you so much. I
thank
thank
you
for addressing this problem in such a nice way, with the contribution from very big stalwarts in the field. I really get enriched with the knowledge from all of them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, sir.
Namaskar.